When I was a US soldier, I was told that this is called the Chinese Tunnel, dug by Chinese soldiers during the Korean War. Today, I'm taking you with me for a walk through the Korean countryside for my first visit to this site in over 30 years. And I'll tell you the true story that's hidden behind the marks on these tunnel walls.
Hello there. It's a little after 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning here in Dongducheon. I'm just outside Busan Station, and you can see all the snow on the ground. We had a good dusting last night. I've come out here today to take you to a place I haven't visited in over 30 years. There's a tunnel that I used to drive through when I was in the Army. We were going to a training facility out that way, and we'd have our convoy, and we'd drive through that tunnel every time we went out there. The story I heard about it when I was in the Army turns out probably isn't true. So I'm going to take you out there today and tell you the real story about the tunnel and why it's so interesting to me now. This is what we used to refer to as the Ville when I was in the Army. This whole street right here, up this way and down over this way, down this street, right there. In 1997, it was designated as a special tourist zone, and they gave it the name Camp Bosan. Bosan is one of the neighborhoods here, Bosan-dong. And it's the same name as the subway station here, which was opened 2007, 2009, something like that. I'll put the date on the screen. But when I was here in 1991 to 1993, the 2 years I was here, there was a train track. There was a rail line right there. One of the things that really strikes me about this place now is all the street art. This stuff was implemented, as I understand, as part of the Camp Bosan concept. And it really gives this place a different atmosphere than it had when I was here. And you know, I will bet that these tailor shops here behind me, I will bet that these guys were here when I was here. And probably this leather shop too. I wouldn't be surprised. Leather jackets were a big deal back then. So were the tailored suits. And these guys weren't here, these food booths. None of that was here. Another big difference is I see a variety of shops here that we didn't have back then. Like this tattoo shop right here. We did not have any tattoo shops in the Ville here back then. We had a couple of pawn shops here, but I've seen several more on the street out here. Taco shops. There are so many taco shops. There's another tattoo place behind me. The only Western food I remember seeing here, there was a Burger King. When I first got here, there was a Wendy's, but it went out of business a few months later and became a Winter's Burger, whatever that it was, but it was still a hamburger place. And there was a guy at the, just next to the crossing there of the train tracks, who had a little corn dog shack, actual American style corn dogs, not the Korean style. And there was a lady who would push a cart up and down the street sometimes who sold hot dogs. That was it. Everything else, any other restaurants in the area, and there weren't a whole lot of them, but any others were all Korean. This is where I get to play my old man card and talk about how great these guys had it here. Now, I understand that a number of these businesses probably aren't open anymore. I'm not sure exactly what the situation is. Business here has suffered in the last few years. It started suffering when the subway line opened and the soldiers were able to more easily get to Seoul. And it suffered further when most of the soldiers here at Camp Casey were relocated down south. But one last thing before we leave, this place right here was not here, this big plaza. This whole area was just a little pile of buildings and alleyways. There was a major period of anti-American demonstrations here. There was a really nasty crime committed by one of the soldiers, well known. I'll link to the Wikipedia article about it in the description, maybe a pinned comment. But when that happened, we were locked down on base for, 3 weeks, 2 weeks. And there were people protesting day and night outside, large crowds, throwing Molotov cocktails made with soju bottles and spray painting Yankee Go Home on the walls. Right here, used to have a row of buildings. And in one of the buildings here was a little restaurant. If you're familiar with the Korean term ajuma, this is a term they use for middle-aged women. As far as I know, every battalion at Camp Casey and on other bases around the 2nd Infantry Division had their own ajuma. Our battalion's ajuma had a little restaurant here in this row of buildings. And we could come down here and borrow money from her. She kept books, right? So we'd come in here, we'd eat ramen, we'd drink something. She used to sell this spiced rum called Captain Q. It was nasty stuff, but for some reason we liked it. We drank a lot of it. So we would often come here for dinner before heading out to the Ville to drink. Toward the end of the month, people would come by and start borrowing money from her. And then on payday, she would be on base and she would sit outside the headquarters barracks with her little spiral notebook in her lap. And people would come up and pay what they owed. And if somebody didn't pay, she would tell the commander. And this place we're going today, this tunnel, is on the route we used to take to this training facility called MPRC, the Multi-Purpose Range Complex. They have a firing range out there that they use for tanks and like Apache helicopters. My understanding, it's been unused, the firing range at least has been unused since 2018 because of noise. We would go out there, as I recall, twice a year. Seems like we went once in the spring and once in the autumn. We would get out there to the training facility and Ma, our Ajima, would already be out there with her tent set up. She had a tent set up outside the entrance to the facility. She had snacks like chocolate pies, the moon pies, ramen, all kinds of other stuff. No alcohol, supposedly. We could take our MREs, our meals ready to eat, the things in the little brown bags, and exchange the MREs for ramen and chocolate pies. You get like one chocolate pie and one bowl of ramen for one MRE. And then she would take the MREs and sell them on the black market, I think. That is Soyo-san, Soyo Mountain. I used to see that from my barracks every day. I never did go hiking there, but I went into the little park in the entrance there with a Korean friend, and that was the first time I had makgeolli and Dongducheon. Makgeolli you may have heard of. It's the milky, cloudy, rice-based alcohol. It's often called rice wine or rice liquor. It's fermented. Dongducheon is very similar. It's just thicker, heavier, and had bits of rice in it. And I remember sitting there at the table drinking the makgeolli and the Dongducheon. My friend kept asking me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, I'm fine." I didn't feel drunk at all. And then I stood up and I don't remember anything after that. That stuff will sneak up on you. And this is the Dongducheon. I believe it translates as East Head Stream, meaning the head of the stream is in the east. This is gate 2 of Camp Casey. And usually when I went to Seoul, if I didn't ride the bus that was on base. I would come out this gate, and there was a little train station over here. It was just this little tiny rectangular building. There was a ticket booth on the left with one person sitting inside. And on the right, there were benches on 3 walls. And the doors were in the middle, double doors, opening onto the tracks and opening out onto the street. That was it, a little small place. One thing about this walk today, as much as I would like to walk all the way to the tunnel, we're not going to do that. The route we have to go to get there, there's a huge section of it that has no pedestrian infrastructure. A portion of that section is a little too risky to walk. Further on up the road, we can catch the bus and get off just below the tunnel, and that will get us past the dangerous parts.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It doesn't show signs of stopping, and I brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight, I'll hate going out in the storm. But if you really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight, I'll hate going out in the storm. But if you really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
We're now in Yeoncheon-gun, Yeoncheon County, which today is probably best known for the annual Paleolithic Festival that is said to draw around 100,000 visitors every year. During the Korean War, it was also the site of a fierce battle between members of the Philippine Expeditionary Force and Chinese forces during the Chinese Spring Offensive.
Oh, look at that. They've got deer there. That's a deer farm. Huh. They're all looking at me. Hello.
Our route takes us through the southeast corner of Yeoncheon County. Here, we're in a village called Choseongri.
A blink and you'll miss it kind of thing.
And we leave the village to cross the Shincheon. This is the same stream we followed for a bit in the walk from Gyeonggi-do to Dongducheon.
Look at this. Look at these guys. They're huge. Wow.
We rejoin the highway on the other side. Then we cross the street again to head down this country road.
Yeah, I don't mind walking along a little road like this. When you do see a vehicle now and then, they tend to drive slowly, so no problem. Look at that, there's apartments off in the distance over there. That's a surprise. I wonder what they're growing in there. I wish I had the ability to tolerate ice cold water the way the ducks do. Yeah, it's not bad at all walking through here. There was one little military vehicle that came through just a minute ago, a small truck, and one of those Terminator things, a dump truck, just passed by, went into this construction site here. Other than that, you can see it's empty here, dead. So not a problem walking through here at all. A bunch of ducks over there next to that ice. Looks like they're sleeping. And I wonder what's up with that makeshift shelter over there. Yeah, look at this. We've got sidewalks on both sides of the street here. Oh, this is not good. I'm walking through some kind of pollution here coming out of this smokestack over here. Oh. Oh my God, how do people live next to that thing? Oh. I don't know if you can see the haze in the air. It's thick. It's obviously not clean air. Oh man. Whew. Whew. I'm sensitive to that kind of thing. This stuff up here at least is high up. Yeah, that was just, oh.
It really irritated my chest for a little while and gave me a headache that lingered for a bit.
Oh, look at this. A neighborhood park. The neighborhood's right over there. This isn't close to most of the factories here. It's a walk from most of them. There's that one across the street. That's the closest one to it. Who is this for?
From this point, this area is full of military bases, and it's hard for me to show you any footage without violating Korean law. I can say that I stopped at a CU along the way, right here. Okay, it's about 10 to 1, and I decided to stop for a sandwich and water. So we are here, tunnel's up here. You can see we started all the way down here. So we're getting closer. And this is where things are gonna start to get dicey on the road, it looks like. So this is where I'm gonna wait for the bus. Things aren't looking good for pedestrians up there. Yeah, but I mean, it's so close. It is so close. The road that I need to get to go up the mountain to the tunnel. Another 45 minutes of walking, maybe, I don't know. 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And it's a little frustrating to have to stop right here, but I'm not gonna risk my safety just for a YouTube video. Especially in conditions like these. So I'm gonna sit here and hope the bus comes. Wish me luck. It's the next day. I ran into a little bit of a dilemma yesterday and decided it would be best for me to go home and come back out again this morning and catch the first bus from Seoul station. So that's what I did. Somewhere in the description or a pinned comment, you'll find a link to a blog post where I talk about what happened. And we came from this direction over here. Didn't take long to get out here. I've been out here about 10 minutes now getting set up. It was only about a 20-minute ride or so from Seoul station, so not bad. And the bus driver was pretty cool. You know, there's no English on the announcement there on that little bus. It's just like a little van. So I was paying close attention to make sure I didn't miss it, and I knew the name of the stop I was listening for. But as we got close to it, I decided to tell the bus driver that's where I was going. And then I asked him if he knew about the tunnel, and he did. And he actually, instead of dropping me off at the bus stop, he dropped me off right here in front of the streets we need to get there. This is the road behind me. So this is it. This is the road leading up to the tunnel. Finally here. And you'll notice out here on the river, it's frozen solid over here almost. Portions of it. Yeah, it's frozen over and it looks solid in a few places, but rather thin in others. I've been trying to remember what it was like out here, and I just don't. I can tell you this cafe wasn't here, obviously. I was reading that falling rocks have been an issue around the tunnel, and they've got these little awnings built up on either end of it now, but it looks like they're worried about falling rocks here too. And you can see, well, I don't know if you can, but there's definitely some cracks around some sections of this face here. It is much colder out here today than it was yesterday. Feels colder anyway. I'm gonna have to put on my other gloves. I think these gloves aren't cutting it this morning. An interesting place for a bench. Wow. It's right out here in the middle of nowhere. It's a great view though. Okay. Much better. Yeah, the high today I think is supposed to be -2 or something. Now this road, this little one-lane road was actually part of a national route for a while. It was a local route, but then it became part of National Route 37, I think was the number. Now imagine coming through here
and a convoy of tanks. This little narrow road. Yeah, the engineers would have laid a bridge down there so we could cross. We couldn't cross this. Yep, that's what it was. So we would come along, go down across the engineer's little bridge and up again back onto the road. That's what it was. Couldn't have been here at the time, right? I don't remember any buildings being out here. Whew. Here it is.
I haven't found an exact date, but it seems these structures were built on either end of the tunnel in the mid to late 2010s, the purpose being to protect against falling rocks. I have seen comments from local residents complaining about how these things ruin the aesthetics and saying that before they were constructed, more people came to visit the tunnel and production crews sometimes came out here to shoot scenes for K-dramas. This tunnel wasn't excavated by Chinese soldiers, as I'd been told. It predates the Korean War by 2 decades. Korean hands dug it out in 1931, using hammers and chisels overseen by Japanese colonial authorities. In those days, there was no direct link between the east and west sides of these hills, so the colonial government constructed this road and dug out this tunnel to facilitate the movement of supplies and personnel. It's referred to by different names, but a common one is Changgok-gul. Gul is a Sino-Korean word that means cave or grotto or hollow. It's the same character in the name Sokguram, the grotto at the Hermitage on Inwangsan in Seoul. It's used here because the rough surface of the tunnel walls make it look more like a natural cave than a man-made tunnel. Chang is a Sino-Korean word meaning azure or blue-green. Ok is the Sino-Korean word for jade. The cliff through which the tunnel was dug is known as Changgokbyung. This translates as azure jade screen. Byung comes from Byungpung, a folding screen. The name dates back to the Joseon dynasty, said to come from a 16th century official named Pak Sun. He looked at the cliffs, thought they looked like a folding screen, and saw the azure hue of the rocks, something I didn't see myself when I was standing there. Maybe it was more visible back then. And he derived the name Changgokbyung.
You see these lines in the rock. how much of it was blasted, how much of it was carved, hacked away, chiseled. Icicles, look at that, that is awesome. A little worried about vehicles coming through while I'm in here. There was a truck that came through just a minute ago. It's kind of strange being here after all these years. I was fascinated by this place each time I drove through it. And, you know, it was a slow drive. You're in this convoy. You're not moving quickly. You're moving incredibly slowly going through here. And I remember looking at the surface of the rock in here, trying to see the detail, but you know, I had to keep my eyes on the road. And I always wanted to come back at that time and really see it. I didn't expect it would take over 30 years to do it, but here we are. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm glad I came here in the winter. It's interesting seeing these icicles hanging in here. But I don't feel what I expected to feel. You know, because of my fascination with the place back then, I expected some kind of, I don't know, emotion coming in here. Like, wow, I finally get to see it. And I'm not feeling that. But it is cool to be here. And it's also sobering. I think any excitement I might have felt is dampened by knowing the truth about how it was made. But anyway, thanks for coming with me to visit this piece of history, this piece of Korean history, this piece of my history, small piece of it. I hope you enjoyed the walk. If you ever get the urge to come out here, please do. I recommend it. Don't do what I did though. Don't walk. Grab a bus. Grab that number 91 from Soyosan Station or near Chongsan Station. And if you don't speak Korean, make sure you follow along on the map so you know where you are. But if you enjoyed this walk and you haven't seen the first 2 videos in this little mini series, check out the playlist right over there. Should be right over there. Bye-bye.